Hey, welcome to the West Coast Biased. I'm Andrew Nemec. Jason Suke is back from Portugal. How was your trip, man?
Portugal's great. I highly recommend it. I've been very blessed over my life to get to travel a lot of different places. I think I was trying to keep track. I think that was like 26. I think that was like the 26th country that I've been to. So I don't go to a lot of places twice. There are definitely some that you like are favorites, but it's a big old world, and I'm trying to see as much of it before they put me in the ground. And it takes something really special to bring me back. Portugal is on that list. Portugal might be
a returnable location.
That's a returnable location.
All right.
That Portugal was really neat. A lot of Europe, unfortunately, is becoming Disneyland, where the locals don't want you there, and you don't really want to be there. There's just too many people. Most capital cities. I went to Italy earlier this year, and Rome, and even like Venice. You're not in Rome and you're not in Venice. You're just in Disneyland with 10,000 other tourists. And I know it's you sound like a putz because you are a tourist while you're there. Sure. But you're not amongst Italians. Like you're not. There's no cultural thing other than you're staring at something old and beautiful. You're doing it with just a bunch of rude, angry tourists. And so a lot of that, like Barcelona's that way, Greece is that way. And so I think Lisbon has fought that a little bit. And I was talking to some locals there who say that certainly it's coming, but Porto and Lagos were amazing places, 3 hours north, 3 hours south. Lisbon was still really cool. So I've just been really blessed to get to see a lot of places. It's how I choose to spend my disposable income and my time. I just really like seeing different parts of the world, and the people were amazing. The food was great. The wine was good. Got to see Phantom of the Opera at their big performing arts center in downtown Lisbon. The last night I was there, which was incredible. And that was a West End, a British company was doing that. So which was like their Broadway. It just was a really cool experience. So I try to encourage everyone, especially with all the turmoil we have going on right now in our country. And our country is so big that it's easy to kind of get landlocked into our country. Because, when you talk to people over there, you go 4 hours any direction from a European city, you can be in 3 different countries. Where you go 4 hours here, you're not even out of the state. Right. So it's easy to get landlocked in our country, and we have so many cool and amazing places to see in our country. I just think now more than ever, it's important to get out and realize that we all want the same things. Whether you go to Iceland, you go to Costa Rica, you go to Mexico, you go to Canada, you go to Portugal, you go to Indonesia, we're all just the same people. Maybe we have different color skins, maybe we speak different languages, but at the end of the day, we're all just trying to do the same thing, and we're all trying to live our best lives. And I just love having that experience and getting to take my kids and take my family and go see those sorts of things. And I know it's hard for some, but if you have the opportunity, get out and see different parts of the world. It really is an eye opener for you, and you get to meet wonderful people and experience different cultures and eat different food and just it is the thing that I am probably most thankful for in my life, is that I've been blessed with the opportunity to go see a lot of those different places. And Portugal definitely gets the 2 thumbs up. Spend a few days in Lisbon, but then go see Porto and go see Lagos, go north, go south, drive through the countryside, rented a little Fiat, which I didn't fit in, but that was fun. Me and a little Fiat 500, like, shifting my way through the Portugal countryside. And, it was an amazing trip. So glad to be back though.
You reminded me that Idaho had an O lineman. Is it Mike Iupati? Do you remember that name?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He used to roll around in a VW bug when he was in Idaho. So he's this huge dude, and you could see him driving, and he was just this hulking figure in this very recognizable bug.
It's funny. So my better half, my gal, who's a little Japanese gal, and she likes these big cars. So she always wants to drive these big SUVs. So she drives like this big, like jacked up Sasquatch Ford Bronco. That's like her car with like the convertible top. And I drive little cars, and it's a weird juxtaposition. I like little, little, I don't drive a Fiat, but if you've seen my car, I drive a little, a little electric sedan. And
your cars are clean and they're
yes. Yeah, they're sporty. I like little sporty cars. So when I drive like these big jacked up cars, my buddy, I live right by the airport, Portland Airport. So a lot of times people will leave their cars at my house and then just have me take them to the airport. And my buddy was going on a trip, and so they'll just leave my car. They'll leave their car at the house, and he's like, "Hey, you can drive it if you want." And he has this huge F-150 Ford Raptor. And God, I was driving that thing back from the airport, and I was like, "No!" I parked that thing in my car and my side of my house, was like, "That thing ain't moving." It feels so weird, like just this monstrosity thing, and it always feels like it's like out of control. And there's something about being low to the ground and all four tires on there and the grip. So when people see me get out of my car, there's often, if you saw the two of us either in our driveway, you would not think that the Bronco is my gal's and my little electric rocket ship is mine. But I like those little sporty Zoom cars.
My dad always had, because we always had big dogs and then playing sports and stuff. My dad always had a minivan. So I learned to drive with the backup minivan, like that's how it works. And then SUVs. Then it became SUVs as we stopped doing sports and he didn't have to drive half the team around or whatever. Yeah. So I only drove minivans or SUVs. And the first time I drove a car was like a buddy in my 20s, like, "Hey man, I've been drinking. Can you drive my car?" And I think I've driven 2 cars in my whole, like my best friend's car when he was drinking in his 20s, and then my stepdad's car to take him to the airport. That is it. 2 cars in my whole life. Everything else has been SUV, minivan, truck.
That's like everyone in my life. They all, my friends all make fun of me because they all drive same thing. They all drive big trucks or big SUVs, and I've always had like whether it's like I had a Cadillac like CTV or I drove some Ford Mustangs, or now, like I said, I have a little i4 electric that I zoom around in. I don't know, for being a bigger guy, I don't know why the SUV thing never grabbed me. Huh? No, it never grabbed me. Like even like my little motorcycle that I drive around on, it's like people think like I ride like a big Harley, and it's not. It's a little Triumph. I don't know. Maybe I'm just big enough that I don't need.
You don't need to compensate in any real way. Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, from a motorcycle to my car to everything, it tends to be a little bit more on the small spot, a little small side with speed, right? Speed is a feeling.
They say all rappers want to be professional athletes. All professional athletes want to be rappers. I think it's the same thing with athletes. Athletes who were big offensive linemen, they want to be sleek and sporty in their vehicle. And then the smaller, compact running backs and receivers, they want to drive big trucks. It's a working theory. I went back and listened to some old episodes, which much to my detriment. By the way, I do think we're getting a little better. I would really like the Patrick Mahomes, something's wrong with Patrick Mahomes take back already. Yeah. I would like that one back.
Whoops. Everyone
here's the thing,
right?
There's some downfield throwing issues. There still are, but Rashee Rice was out. Xavier Worthy was out. Yeah. Like you got to account for that. And then I had another one that I really want. Picking Clemson to win the national title. I would really like that back. Yeah. You are a little bit more measured.
Yeah.
And then when you say stuff, it's like fairly when you go out on a limb, it's because you've seen something that you're very, very confident in. Whereas I think sometimes I'm more like, what's wrong with Mahomes? So you don't have a lot of like glaring, like, whoa, what a take. Like you're like, one of the things I thought you said that was going to come back to bite you. You said Zach Charbonnet is better than Kenneth Walker, and I was like, oh man, he's gonna regret. Well, now they're in a total timeshare, and they have different roles, but like that didn't bite you. You don't have a lot that has come back to bite you yet, so you can take a lot. Your Arch Manning sucks take is going swimmingly. Drew Aller's hurt, so he can't prove you wrong when you said he sucks. You said Penn State's not a top 10 team. That proved to be very accurate. So you've been a little more accurate on this pod. I do have a couple of big home runs so far with like, hey, Mekhi Hughes isn't really going to play before people knew that. There's a couple of those where I kind of had heard some sourcing things that I reported where I can kind of get you. But generally speaking, my highlight reel is pretty decent so far. The low lights though, there's 3 or 4 if you go back and listen. That I'd like back.
I've been doing this for so long. It's like, you get paid to give an opinion, and not every opinion is going to be right. That's why I'm always like, when the Arch Manning thing, look, Arch Manning's not good. He just isn't.
Yeah,
And I that was one that I went out on a limb and just said, I don't think he's good. I said, I don't get it. I don't understand, and I don't take this lightly. And I said, look, if it ages poorly, I'll be the first one to raise my hand. I didn't think Justin Herbert was going to be a good NFL player. Right. I didn't. I
liked Trey Lance. I mean, again, the low lights are low, man.
I'm happy to raise my hand, but I always try to say that everything that I throw out there tries to come from an educated place. I try not to do hot takes just for the sake of being a hot take guy. So if it's something I believe in, I have no problem putting it out. And when I'm right, I'll be the first one to say, yeah, while I'm right here, dude, I'm wrong about 1,000 other things. But in this one case, I happen to be right. It's the Arch Manning Drew Aller thing. But there are some times where I have no problem pushing against the grain. The Drew Aller and Arch Manning things were too, where the narrative, we do a lot of groupthink in the world of sports. And again, don't take this as an insult to anyone that covers sports. I think there's a lot of people that do really, really good jobs, and we all do the best we can. But I think at times you can't watch everything. Right. And so I think what happens is narratives get formed. So if you get told that Drew Aller or Arch Manning is good, very few people are sitting down and watching Penn State games, like on a regular basis on a national perspective. So
like all of them. Right.
Yeah, it's all of them. So you just hear that narrative over and over again. And so if you speak something into existence, it becomes, it's the man who shot Liberty Valance, right? It's an old legend, but look it up. It's an old movie. And the whole point of the movie is that when the legend becomes fact, you print the legend. And that happens all the time, that legends become facts. Mm-hmm. And it's stories, it's myths that get told. And then all of a sudden, like, the reality of it sets in, and we're like, well, what happened? Well, nothing happened. It was never based on anything. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
So we're often shocked when these things like fall apart, and we're like, my God, this team isn't very good. Why? We were told they were going to be greater. You see this in the draft all the time, where we get told that someone's going to be a top 10 pick and they go in the third round. And we're like, what happened? What happened was no one thought he was going to be a top 10 pick. Right. Somehow the narrative got spun and media guys picked up on it. And no one was really paying attention to who the third best corner in the draft was. Mm-hmm. And so next thing you know, you were told that this guy was a great player. And so the narrative gets spun off, and then the reality of it comes crashing down. So
I think the first time I saw that in the draft where it really bothered me, and I know I told you at the time, was the Trevor Lawrence stuff. People were like, Trevor Lawrence is generational. I was like, Suke, he is not generational. He is not.
Look at him, right?
That was the whole narrative, is like, he's generational. And I said, I think if you watch one game, he looks the part. He's got a B+ arm, B+ mechanics. He's B+ in everything. And so if you don't really, really, really watch him, you don't poke a hole. There's not that many places to poke a hole. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, if guys can kind of get away with not poking the hole, they look the part, they win, especially in college. They win. They've got a pretty good arm. You go, oh yeah. And you watch their highlight reel, you go, yeah, that guy can really sling it, but it's watching every throw consistently. But I remember that was the first time I ever went, whoa, this is all myth making. Trevor Lawrence is not this guy at all.
It happens all the time. Or, one thing, like, we take Oregon, right? Oregon beats Penn State, and now, Penn State is terrible, and they fired James Franklin, and everything's gone. And we look at that and we're like, we look through the lens of when Oregon beat Penn State. And you can do this both ways. You can say, well, Oregon, who gives a crap now? Penn State isn't very good, right? Or you can look at it and say, at the time, we thought this. That's the only information that we have to go on is what happens in that moment. But like, if Oregon had a fourth down, it was like 4th and 7 or whatever, they converted. If they don't convert that, or one play goes the other way and they lose that game, and then they lose to Indiana, what are we talking about Oregon? So like, and so that narrative can get spun where you guys are like, well, you guys said Oregon was great, and they could have easily lost that game. There's so many times that narratives get spun on something that happens on one play, right? Mm-hmm. One play goes one way, and all of a sudden the narrative completely shifts based on one play. And the truth of the matter is that's a lot closer to the middle of someone saying that Oregon's great or Oregon's terrible, or Arch Manning's great or Arch Manning's terrible. So many times it really does come down to one or two plays. And yet that's going to swing in and to make either you look like a fool or make you look like a great, Nostradamus, that you're able to make these sorts of predictions. Because the truth of the matter at the end of the day is sports is so unpredictable. It's why people love it. Mm-hmm. It's in this world that we live in now. It's the one thing that can't be replicated. It's the ultimate drama, because you don't know what's going to happen. we got Game 7 tonight with the Mariners and the Blue Jays for the World Series to go on the line, and no one knows what's going to happen there. And so you can sit there and say, oh, the Mariners, the Blue Jays, but no one can predict if someone goes out and throws a 9-inning shutout. No one can predict if someone goes out and hits 3 home runs,
strikes out 10 dudes and hits 3 bombs in one game.
The greatest performance we've ever seen. So all you can do, it's all I've tried to do over the years is say everything I try to predict, or everything I try to say tries to come from a place of reason and logic. So I remember years and years ago when Oregon State beat that number 1 USC team that came into Corvallis. If you remember that.
Yeah. The Leinart, you're talking about the Leinart Bush team?
Yeah, it was like, oh my God, I might have been Sanchez. Might have been Mark Sanchez.
Okay.
But it was, in Corvallis, and they beat him. And I remember Beaver fan just giving me ending crap. And I said, anyone that predicted that Oregon State was going to win that game doesn't know shit about college football. Now, you can say that you predicted it because you have a gut feeling and that you love the Beavers and you think they're going to rise up, and that's fine. But that none of that is based on reality, right? There's nothing you can point to in that game. There's not one single thing in that matchup that you could tell me that Oregon State had an advantage over USC, or that Oregon State should have beat USC. Other than you like the Beavs, and what the hell, you can say that they're going to win, and if they don't, who cares? Because USC was supposed to stomp them. They were whatever it was, 3 touchdown favorites or whatever. So it's easy to throw out. You can throw out 30 underdog predictions, and when 29 of them don't hit, no one cares. But when the one hits, then you get to stand up and pound your chest and be like, oh, I called that. You didn't call shit, right? There's not. And now if you want to sit there and say, okay, you look at some of the advanced metrics here, and you look at styles make fights, and USC doesn't do well against, whatever, read option offenses, and this offense gives USC problems, or if you want to give me some little thing, and that's fine. If you want to look at a statistical advantage, or a style make fights, and you want to bring that up, I'll listen to it all day and be like, hey man, kudos to you, tip of the cap. But if you're just out here spewing crap that has no basis, right, and you say, well, I think so and so is going to upset them because I have a feeling, that's nothing.
Right.
And I don't respect that. I don't give you any credit for that. That's just you throwing a bunch of crap against the wall, and occasionally something sticks. Right. And so I really try hard not to do that. If I tell you someone's going to win, I will give you a reason why I think they're going to win, or why I think they can be better than maybe some people think. And then if you come back to me when that doesn't hit and you want to throw it in my face, again, I don't care, because it came from a place of logic and reason. And that's all I've ever tried to do when I'm talking about any sport, but especially football, which is the one I understand the best, is the one I cover the most. I try to come from a place of logic and reason. And if you come from a place of logic and reason and you're right or wrong, I will still respect that. But if you come from a place of, oh, I think he's generational. Why? I don't know, because a lot of people says he does. Get out of here. I got no time for you. It's nonsense.
Yeah. Well, I think all of that speaks to what we're trying to talk about today, which is a state of the union of some of the programs that we follow. Where are they really at? What do we really think the expectations are? Where are their strengths and weaknesses? It would be really easy for us to go over Oregon's win over Rutgers. I don't think we're going to glean a lot from that. I don't think that's really going to tell us a ton, especially since you haven't been, on the show since they lost to Indiana. I think it makes more sense to kind of do big picture. Oregon State beats Lafayette. They were down at halftime. We didn't learn anything. We need to do State of the Union there. And then Washington lost to Michigan. And I think people think, oh, they were pretenders. Well, they have 2 losses, and they might win out until they play Oregon. So they might be 9-2 playing Oregon, which is exactly what we said. The position they could very well be in. So I think it's time to kind of do a State of the Union and also take a look at college football. And we can start with Oregon. You weren't here last week. I just said I thought Oregon got outplayed. I thought Oregon got outcoached. I thought their O-line struggled. Indiana disguises. We talked about it in the preview show. Their interior is really good. That's what we said in the preview show. And they disguised their blitz really well. I think all of that caught Oregon a little bit off guard. And then 100%. We also talked about the fact that Indiana, in terms of their offense, is as complicated as it gets. And they have Elijah Surratt and they have Mendoza, and that's as good a passing attack as they'll face. I actually thought the defense did a pretty good job there for the most part. It was the offense where they didn't stretch the field vertically. And I started to go, can they stretch the field vertically? I think Oregon very intentionally went into this Rutgers game. We've talked about it throughout. Oregon never throws to Sadiq down the seam. They never throw deep balls to Sadiq. We caught 2 touchdown balls against Rutgers away from his frame, away from his body, downfield. It looked like Oregon went, okay, we need to, and this is a safe place for us to do it, we need to establish some passing game downfield because we have to start getting those safeties to back up. Penn State was able to come downhill. Indiana was able to come downhill. We've got to get people to respect our vertical speed. And I thought the Rutgers game was the beginning of that. And what we saw with the run game is once they were able to establish some of that, it all opened up. And suddenly this Rutgers team is like, our safeties have to play back because we're getting beat by Sadiq and Moore down the field. They're wide open. Crap, they're running for 14 yards a carry. And it's that thing where you're the inside linebacker and your head's just spinning. Do I need to help out and back up? Do I need to come downhill? And they got Rutgers thinking, and that's what Oregon's offense needs to do with everybody. Stretch the field vertically, run the ball, make people think. And I think they've been not one-dimensional, but they've been really compact in their play calling the last few weeks, Penn State, Indiana. And I thought Rutgers was an intentional attempt to use the whole field, which I thought was really encouraging.
Yeah, and we know this about Oregon. And the way Oregon plays, when they play inferior teams, they will not be upset by inferior teams. They're just not. They're at that point now where when they play Rutgers, when they play the Minnesotas of the world, it just feels like they just squash them like a bug, right? And so no surprise here. I mean, they had 4 guys average 15 yards a carry. I mean, it's just again, I don't know what you take out of it other than what you just said. I thought, obviously moving Harkey into guard, I think was something interesting, kind of playing around with the offensive line a little bit. Again, going back and actually watched that because I watched the Indiana game, the second half. I actually watched it at a bar at an airport lounge. And so I actually went back and watched that. And I thought overall, man on man, I don't think the O-line played terrible. I think it was more of a communication. I thought the confusion of it. I think some of that is on the back.
It was scheme more than talent, for sure.
So I don't think Oregon was necessarily whooped up front, but I do think that they were out schemed. And I talked to Dan Lanning the week before, and I mentioned when you watch Indiana and what they do, it is very much a Brian Flores NFL safety rotational, show you one thing, bring another. And I thought Dante Moore got put in the dryer a little bit, and his head got spun around. And remember, as much as we love Dante Moore, and we both think Dante Moore has a real good shot of being the number 1 overall pick, Dante Moore hasn't started a lot of football games, and I don't think Dante Moore has seen a defense quite like Indiana. I was also really impressed with Indiana physically up front. Those 2 linebackers they had and a couple of their D linemen. I apologize, Indiana. I was not familiar with your game. I just they were way physically better than what I thought. When we had seen Indiana play teams like Oregon last year, they were bullied. Notre Dame bullied them, and Ohio State bullied them. Just punched them in the mouth. And I actually thought the bullies were Indiana. I thought Indiana was more physical than Oregon was, and I just didn't expect that. So, yeah, I mean, what do you make of state of the program? When I look at Oregon and I look at the rest of the world of college football, I kind of feel like if we're going to shift over to the NFL right now, if I had to tell you, you give me one team right now, one team in the NFL that you had to put money on to win the Super Bowl with looking forward, who would it be?
Well, I tell you this every year. As long as Patrick Mahomes starts the year healthy, right? I take the Chiefs because they're at least in the Final Four every year he's ever been a starter.
And by the way, that's where I'm going to. Like, if I had to say right now, after the last 2 weeks, it's Kansas City, right? Yeah. And Kansas City, the first 3 weeks of the season, what the hell was wrong with Kansas City? Defense doesn't look that good. Mahomes, there's some regression there. Don't have receivers. My point is, the Super Bowl champion often will have 3, 4, 5 losses. And in college football, we've never lived in that world, right? We've lived in a world where, if you had one loss, you could be eliminated. There were years where the best team in the country was clearly not one of the 2 teams playing for the national championship, right? That happened all the time. And I just think the world of college football we're living in now, I think last year's Ohio State team is a great example of this, right? Ohio State loses to Oregon in a nail biter, absolutely craps the bed against Michigan. And we're like, well, what's wrong? I mean, Ryan Day was on the verge of getting fired after that Michigan game. And what happened? Well, last time I checked, come playoff time, dude, they rode some ass, including Oregon's. Yeah. I mean, they spanked you. That thing was over before it even started. I mean, they rolled through teams.
I turned it off, I think, in the first quarter. And I was like, I'll watch this later. This is not worth my time. They're not prepared.
I just think this is the world we're living in the world of college football now, where the way the portal has kind of sparsed out some talent, you aren't just going to be able to roll out the football and be more talented than everybody you play. You're going to be more talented than Rutgers. But we've seen Oregon play two talented teams this year, right? We've seen them play Penn State and we've seen them play Indiana. Penn State, they were better than Penn State. I'm still convinced if they played that game 10 times, Oregon wins 8 of them. But in that one game, Penn State damn near had them.
Yeah.
Penn State had them. And in Indiana was better than you at home. But I think that's the world we're living in now. When you're one of these top 10 teams, I think these games are more 50-50 games. And I think you're going to have years like what Penn State had, like firing James Franklin. To me, good luck. I mean, it was a lost season. But
I didn't like that at all.
I didn't like it either. But I just think this is the reality that we're living in now, where even for the elite teams, you're not going to be undefeated every year. You're going to have some bumps in the road. You're going to have some weeks where you don't look particularly good and other weeks where you bounce back. And so when I look at Oregon, and I'm sitting here at 6-1, 2 teams that you've played, 1 a close loss, 1 a close win. I think we thought those games would have been inverse. We thought maybe the close loss would have been Penn State and the close win would have been Indiana. But this is kind of about where we thought this team would be. And when I look around the country, I still don't think there's anyone that goes in and is infinitely better than Oregon. I don't think Oregon's the best team in the country. I think Indiana proved that. I think there's some things that obviously have to be cleaned up, but also there's a long way to go from now until we're getting into the actual college football playoff where we see Oregon. Is Oregon one of the better teams in the country? Yeah. Are they the best? No. Could they win a national title? Yeah, if things break their way. Yep. Will they? Probably not, which is, again, kind of what we've been saying all along. And as new information comes to light, then you kind of have to reevaluate and see where you're at, because some of the strengths that we thought aren't necessarily the strengths that are carrying this team, and some of the weaknesses that we thought were going to be exposed really necessarily haven't been. So, again, it's just it's an evolution of this season. But where Oregon's at right now, I think right about where both you and I thought they would be, maybe just a little different path on how they got here.
Yeah, I think that I think a perfect microcosm of this whole thing is the Oregon offensive line. College Football Fox Twitter account tweeted only 3 teams have given up 1 sack heading into that Indiana game, and I said this is wildly misleading. Yep. Oregon's O-line is not like this. And then they played Indiana and people went, oh my God, their O-line's terrible. It's like, no, it's not that either. They got out-schemed and out-coached in that game. They did. They got out-coached in the trenches. Yep. Big time. But they're still a top 10 offensive line. Dante Moore, to me, is still a potential first-round pick. If he went this year, he'd be a first-rounder. I don't know exactly where he'd go. If he stays another year, he's really got a strong chance to be the number 1 pick. He might be anyway. The receiving core is kind of what I thought. DeCorian Moore's more polished than where I thought he would be. Kenyon Sadiq is beginning to emerge. I thought that Rutgers game, it is just Rutgers, but catching the ball away from your body when you're off balance is a skill. And the fact that he was able to do it twice in that spot, it matters. It adds to his repertoire. It was like the last infinity stone for him. You can go back through his tape. I've asked people who know this stuff. Do you have any Sadiq highlights away from his body, like diving for a cat? And they're like, he doesn't have that yet. Well, he had 2 in that game. So that was really, really good. I'm glad we've figured out the running back rotation. Like, we're done with the Mekhi Hughes experiment. We're done with Jaden Lamar. He didn't get a carry this week. I still feel like, and I don't know if D.R. Hill's now in the doghouse or something. He went from being the guy against Penn State to now he gets like a couple of kind of gimmicky carries. Whittington is running between the tackles really well. And I think you go back, and one of the things that aged well that we talked about was the running back by committee. And it feels like someone broke a pool cue and said, Noah Whittington is our guy for the outside. We need a guy to run between the tackles. It's tryouts. And I think Noah Whittington took that personally. And he's like, I can run between the tackles too. And as he gets healthier and as he gets more comfortable and as he kind of gets lathered up, gets in a groove where he gets consecutive carries and it's not rotation, he seems to be hitting his stride. Where do I think he's, a legendary Oregon running back? No, but I think he's good enough that against most teams, he's going to be fairly effective. The Indianas of the world, the Georgias of the world, the Alabamas of the world, Oregon's probably lacking a little bit at running back. They have depth and they have guys that are going to be good enough to hold their own against those teams down the road. But right now, they don't have that dude that's like mark it down. 120 yards, like like Jeremiah Love against USC this week.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, okay, USC can't stop the run. Jeremiah Love, just go dominate. And Jeremiah Love potentially is the number 1 running back in this next year's draft class. And he averaged almost 10 yards a carry, and they beat USC. I don't know if Oregon has that guy, but I still like the offense. They need to continue to stretch things vertically. I think they're going to work that in this second half of the season. I think you're going to see more of that, and they need to, because the one thing that both Penn State and Indiana did really well was they figured out Oregon's not going to throw it downfield. They either don't have time because of what we're scheming up, or they don't trust their guys down the field. So let's load the box. Let's bring our safeties downhill. And Indiana was so obviously showing that. Jeff Schwartz tweeted it. I was talking about it in my text thread with people that I watch Duck games with. It was like, oh my God, those safeties are cheating so bad. They need to throw over the top, and they couldn't. I think this Rutgers game was part of that. Defensively, listen, I think this is a really good defense. Say what you will about Penn State. Say what you will about that Indiana. They lost to Indiana. Indiana put up 30. Some of that was Oregon went for it on 4th down, late. Dante Moore threw a bad pick late in the game trying to make something happen that gave him a really short field. That's a really good Indiana offense. And they basically held them to 20 points going into the fourth quarter. This defense is good enough to win you a title. But you look at it, and I think this is what I've come to. I don't know, outside of Ohio State, maybe still question mark, if there's a truly juggernaut team this year. I think there are 14 teams, 13 teams that could win a first round game depending on the matchup. And there are probably 7 or 8 teams that could really win it if everything breaks right and the right injuries happen for other teams. And Oregon's in that group. They're in that group. And I can't tell you right now who's going to win. Look at the SEC. Texas A&M barely beat Arkansas. They survived against a Notre Dame team we don't really think is that good. They're the only undefeated team in the SEC, and they're number 3. And I think Oregon would be a 7-point favorite against Texas A&M. I think they're much better than Texas A&M. So even the best conference, air quotes, in all of college football, the only team that has no losses is Texas A&M, and that's because they haven't played Alabama, Georgia, LSU, or anybody. So I think teams are going to lose a game or two, and there's going to be 8 teams when we enter the playoffs that have a shot. Let's see where the matchups line up. Let's see how it all lines up, and let's snap the football. Oregon's proven they belong in that top tier. We'll find out. And I think we felt that way going into those first games into Penn State. We'll learn a lot from Penn State. I honestly don't think we're going to learn that much more from Oregon going forward, other than they're one of the 8 teams. Let's see how the bracket shakes out, and let's play ball. Because I think they should physically beat this USC team. And as much as I like Washington, and we've said this, Washington might be playing for a lot. They might only have these 2 losses. They should win outside of the Illinois game. We don't know. That's a coin flip. They'll be a 2-loss team possibly playing Oregon. But we said Oregon's going to be a heavy favorite in that game. I don't see Washington beating Oregon. So that's where we're at, is Oregon's a top 8 team, and they've got a shot to win the title. Isn't that what we said in August? I mean, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, little different path on how they got there. But yeah, I mean, Iowa, and there'll be little tests. Iowa is a good defensive team. I don't think Iowa can score any points, but on the road at Iowa, that'll be
elite offensive line. Maybe the best offensive line in the country.
That'll be interesting. And then, like I said, USC and Washington, we'll see what happens. I don't think either one of those teams are great, but I think there's potential there. I've been a little disappointed in both of those, and we can talk about, I think, Washington, some of the injuries, especially on the offensive line, reared its ugly head, and I thought we had the first real rookie quarterback sort of game. He just lost him that game. Quite frankly, Devon Williams was just awful. They were you can't win. You can't win when your quarterback plays that way on the road. So, does he do that again? So I still think there's a little meat left on the bone, but you're right. Oregon is going to be a touchdown plus favorite against Iowa, SC, and Washington, probably more like 10 points. So this probably still looks like a playoff team. And then, as we said, what do you do in the playoff? That's how you will be judged. It's how Ohio State's judged, how Oregon's judged, how Bama is judged. What do you do when you play in the other teams that are on par with you? And right now, Oregon is 1-1, right? They played 2 ranked teams, and they're 1-1, about 500.
I want to address it because it matters. There's a coaching carousel going on. Every year that this happens, Dan Lanning's name's coming up. None of these jobs are pulling Dan Lanning away.
No. I don't think he's
going anywhere for the next few years. I don't think he's ready for the NFL. I think he's been out-schemed in a couple of their biggest games, unprepared. I think Ohio State, Chip Kelly pantsed him. Let's call a spade a spade. And Indiana, the Indiana game was another one where Oregon's defense played well offensively, and I know it's not necessarily Lanning's bag in terms of play calling. They weren't prepared, and for their scheme, they weren't. Oregon talent-wise up front could hang with Indiana, even though that's a good group, but their front just couldn't communicate to get that all figured out in a home game. That's questionable. You go back to the Georgia game a few years ago, and what NFL teams are going to say is they played some really big games and gotten beat bad in some of their biggest games. So he still needs to kind of get over the hump there. Now that Penn State has fallen off, there's going to be people who say, well, what's his big win? A Fiesta Bowl over Liberty, a Big Ten championship game over a flawed Penn State team. He still has to have a couple of big games, and he has to have games where his scheme kind of proves to be the difference, I think, before he's ready for the NFL. Florida State, those aren't going to take him. So I think you're good there. The one you need to worry about is, and by the way, I think Tosh Lapoy kind of knows he's not a head coach, and I think they like that pairing. I think they get along. I think Tosh Lapoy would have a little bit of a hard time as a head coach juggling all of it. I think he's a good defensive coach. And I think that's been out on him. I think people have said that. Like that's pretty common knowledge that, he's kind of not really a head coach guy, but great pairing with Lanning. The one you have to worry about is Coach Stein. I think if you're an Oregon fan and you're watching the coaching carousel and you're going, oh God, Dan Lanning might leave, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. The one you need to watch is Coach Stein. And I think that's a very real threat. I think he very easily could leave after this year.
Yeah, and it depends on what kind of jobs that are out there, and what sort of aspirations. Like, I think for a guy like Will Stein, I don't think he's going to jump at just any job.
Nope.
I think it's he knows that as long as he stays at Oregon, he will have a top 10 offense, and as long as they keep putting up double-digit win seasons, and they will, eventually he will have a job. I don't think he's leaving to take for instance, the UNLV job, Marcus Arroyo. Like he's not leaving to take that job. Right.
No,
that's not going to be a thing. It'll be a power 4 job if it comes for eventually when Will Stein leaves. I couldn't agree more.
He'll be a guy that gets like a Florida. That might be too high. So you're like Auburn, maybe. Depending on who Penn State hires, if that vacates a good job but not an elite job, is he the Ole Miss head coach if Lane Kiffin goes to Florida? When
Dillingham took the Arizona State job,
that kind of thing.
UCLA, if you want to stay on the West Coast, something like that. Maybe if Colorado opens.
I don't think he leaves for UCLA, man. That's such a dumpster fire of a gig.
I tend to agree, but you never know. That's it. I'm often amazed at people taking bad jobs because look, 1 minute you're the hot commodity and the next you're nothing. But
yeah,
I do think for a guy like Stein, he has to understand that. And I think he's a smart guy. He's not going to cool as a candidate because at Oregon, their offenses will always be good because they're just better than most of the teams that they play.
Right. I also think if he stays, I think it makes it twice as likely that Dante Moore stays. And if he leaves, I think it makes it twice as likely that Dante Moore leaves because a new offensive coordinator can change some things for you. So I think watch that pairing if you're looking, again, State of the Union with all the coaching changes. I thought it was important. Speaking of coaching changes, Oregon State moves on from Trent Bray. We both saw that coming. Jabari Johnson gave a quote that I found very alarming that somehow went mostly under the radar. He said they've had effort issues on tape since week 1. That he feels guys weren't giving a complete effort since the first week of the season. That's a huge problem. I did talk about it in the solo show last week and just said, I'll tell you some things I'd heard, that there was less cohesiveness in fall camp than you'd expect. And some of that was injuries and some of that was how players got along. But it didn't shock me to hear there were effort issues in week 1 because you normally go into a season with a lot of optimism, especially if you're a team that, at least on paper, is talking about 6, 7, 8 wins. And that wasn't the vibe I was getting out of Oregon State camp. It was like, I don't know if the team gets along particularly well. I'm not saying they all hated each other or anything. There was just a belief that not everybody was rowing in the same direction. Let's say it that way. I think that makes the most sense. So to hear a guy say publicly that ever since week 1, we've had guys who don't give a full effort who are on the field, that's really, really alarming. It's really alarming because You don't anticipate that in week 1. Maybe week 6, maybe week 7 if things are bad. If you're the Miami Dolphins, you have your Cleveland Browns game in week 6, 7. You don't usually have effort issues in week 1 unless things are totally imploding. Obviously, they were totally imploding. So they move on from Bray. They're behind against Lafayette. And to be honest, to me, that was a team that was tight, that was like, we haven't won. Oh my God, what if we don't win this one? What are we going to do? And I think Rob Akey probably went in at halftime and was like, you guys, we're like 10 times better than this team. Yeah. Like, this is not even a top 25 FCS team. They're not good. They're not even a good FCS team. So just, we can kind of do whatever we want. And they put in Jabari Johnson instead of Malik Murphy, who got benched, and they rolled. Yeah. And that's what they should do. I don't really care to get into this game, to be honest. I mean, who cares? You beat Lafayette, but you were trailing at halftime. You ended up doing what you're supposed to do. The bigger issue is the coaching hire. I'm concerned about some of the things I'm hearing. I've heard Oregon State fans say, what if we hire Smith and just bring back Bray as defensive coordinator? Yeah. That ship has sailed. If a coach has lost the locker room,
let it go.
You have to let him go. And if it's that bad, you can't hire your previous head coach as defense. You can't fire that guy. Where in college football, and again, this is the Oregon State accepting less than they deserve and continuing to do it. If you fire a head coach, think it throughout college football history, sports history. When have you ever seen a head coach get fired in the middle of the season? And you're like, but we'd love to have you right back in our building immediately to be our defensive coordinator. Stop it. Bray belongs nowhere near what you're doing. And I'd like Coach Smith. I think that would be a solid hire. There's a part of me that thinks because of the motion of things lately, that even the hiring of Coach Smith, as good a guy as he is, as good a coach as he is, kind of sends the wrong message too. Am I wrong there?
No, I do not understand this. I've said that many times, the worst reason to hire someone is because they are a Michigan man. Oh, we need to hire him because he has ties to the school. Stop trying to like this grasp for he understands Oregon State, or like you said, like, well, I mean, he's not the head coach, but we'll bring him back, or we'll go get Jonathan Smith. We'll go relive those days. And I guess you did that with Mike Riley. Mike Riley left, and then he came back, and so maybe there's that sense of familiarity where you're doing that. But Oregon State just needs a total refresh. Stop with this. We're not going back to the glory days. It's not. There needs to be a new chapter. Turn the page. This idea that only someone that understands Oregon State and only someone that's been here before, or someone with ties to the school, can do this. Like, I've heard Bronco Mendenhall thrown out. Why?
I can't believe that people are doing that.
Stop that. Stop it. You said you deserve better than this. You do. You deserve better. So move on. It's like the whole Pac-12 thing. You got screwed over. I get it. Move on. Washington State isn't clamoring for Mike Price to come through the door. I don't hear Washington State clamoring for Nick Rolovich to come back, right? It didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't work. Move on. By the way, there's a name for Oregon State that you should actually consider. Nick Rolovich didn't have a weird thing at you. Go get Nick Rolovich. Yeah. Go get him. Nick Rolovich is a dynamic personality. He runs an exciting offense, and they were happy to have him at Washington State until the whole COVID thing happened. Well, that didn't happen at your place. You don't have to have that weirdness there. We're really going to go through the thing where the weirdness of Trent Bray, who has pissed off half the coaches in the state, who's got a piss poor relationship with half the media members, half the fan base hates him anyways, and this whole NIL thing. I mean, honestly, if Oregon State, if you could do your genie wish, it'd be for Scott Barnes to leave too, and just have the whole damn thing fresh.
Oh, they need a complete reset. And what's weird is the nuance of it. Like, talk to an Oregon State fan about who they like and don't like. And I mean, I've actually joined like Twitter Spaces to try to understand this. Like, they hate Mike Riley. Like, they're like, he abandoned us and he fell apart. And it's like, your guys' best years were under Mike Riley. And by the way, if you like Jonathan Smith, you're tearing off the Mike Riley brand. You're tearing a branch off the Mike Riley tree. Like, that's his guy. Like, what are we doing here? Do you know what I mean? Like, yes. I don't understand how that works, where it's like Riley bad, Jonathan Smith good, Trent Bray good as defensive coordinator. It's like, you guys are doing mental gymnastics about what you deserve. It's the girl that's been cheated on trying to go back to previous boyfriends that it's been 8 years, but they also cheated on her.
Yeah.
And it's like, stop doing this.
You're living in a world now where you no longer have Pac-12 resources, right? You're starting kind of from a little bit from behind the eight ball, obviously, because you don't have the finances that you used to have. You're in this new world of NIL, and that thing has been a mess for you. So stop with the boring retread. No offense. Jonathan Smith is a really good coach, and I thought Jonathan Smith was building a really nice program here at Oregon State, and then he left. And I don't blame him because he saw what was coming. But Jonathan Smith in this world of NIL, it's not working at Michigan State, and I'm not necessarily certain that's going to work at Oregon State. Go find a young, dynamic guy that runs an exciting offense, that kids want to come at, maybe smaller, undersized kids that get overlooked by the Power Four teams, that want to come here and play in an up-tempo, fast-paced offense or a fast-paced defense where you're going to be aggressive, you're going to put up numbers, you're going to put up highlights. Go find that guy. And yes, he's not going to be here for 10 years. You are no longer you weren't a destination school. Very few places are. So yes, if you go hire a guy from the SES, let's say you go get Marion, the coach at Sac State that runs the go-go offense, right? That was the UNLV offensive coordinator. Now he's at Sac State. African-American guy, younger, really exciting, runs this fast tempo offense, throwing the ball all over. Yeah, if you go get that guy, and this is the one that drives me crazy, like people are like, well, if he's good, he'll be gone in 3 years. Cool. That's what you want, because if he's gone in 3 years, it means that he's won 10 games at your school.
Right.
And now you can go out and you can get the next coach that's actually better than him. You are at that point now where you're going to have to live in this world, right? If you go out and get Kalen DeBoer, like when Fresno State got him, Kalen DeBoer was really good at Fresno State, and they lost him to UW. And guess what happened to UW? They lost him to Alabama. Well, most schools are going to be feeder schools now.
Everybody thinks Oregon, has thought Oregon is like the top of the mountain. People say, well, Oregon has infinite resources. They were called a stepping stone program until Dan Lanning. And even then he might move on at some point and you go right back. Very few programs in America, very, very, very few programs in America have a guy for 15, 20 years. And if you win, they leave. Like everywhere they leave.
This idea is that, like, going to get Jonathan Smith, he won't leave. By the way, he left the first time, and you can't tell me that if he is. And by the way, Mike Riley left the second time too. Like, guys leave. This is just the world that we live in. So stop with this. We can't do better than Jonathan Smith. We can't do better than Trent Bray as the defensive coordinator. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. So. Go and don't give me, Matt Wells and, go find me someone at a lower level. Go find the Montana State coach. Go get Jason Eck down in New Mexico. Go find someone that's innovative, that hopefully is a little bit younger, and that you can stabilize. Because right now this program needs stabilization.
I would throw a bag at Jerry Neuheisel.
Yes.
I would.
Right. Look at what UCLA is doing right now. By the way, they won again. And if you notice something that's interesting, who's it? Tim Skipper, I believe, is the head coach. Isn't it something that I had to stop and think about?
We all know Neuheisel, but
right when you watch them after the games and you see the guy giving the speech and who the players are rallying around, it ain't Skipper. Who is it? It's Jerry Neuheisel.
Yep.
Go get Jerry, like you said. Go get Jerry Neuheisel.
It's a year too early, so you might get to keep him a year too long. And if you do, you might be good. And by the way, and this is the thing that drives me nuts. Oregon State fan has done this whole like left behind thing. Washington State just went into the fourth quarter into the deep waters with Ole Miss in Virginia. Yes. You're in the same place.
Yes.
You're in the same spot. And one's competing. So stop.
Who did they go get? They went and got Jimmy Rogers. Where was Jimmy Rogers at? Oh, he was competing for national championships. Go. Right. That's what I want to see.
Right.
The two programs, Washington State and Oregon State, that are in the exact same boat, and one feels light years ahead in where they're heading.
And they shouldn't. They just lost two guys that were potentially back-to-back number one picks in Cam Ward and John Mateer. Any program that experiences that, if you're Alabama and you lose the number one pick and then the next year you lose the Heisman guy, John Mateer was until he got hurt. If you lose that guy from your program back-to-back years, most programs flounder. And Washington State isn't. Here's the other piece. You're now playing states. Utah State and Texas State. you should be the biggest brand or one of the Boise State, Washington State, Oregon State are the three biggest brands in the new Pac-12. When you were in the Pac-12, you were at a recruiting disadvantage. You were at a facilities disadvantage, not a huge facilities disadvantage, but a pretty huge recruiting disadvantage from a bunch of schools. When you're in the Pac-12, you're the bully. You have top 2 or 3 facilities of those programs. You have top 2 or 3 history of those programs. So coaches should see you and say, instead of saying that's a huge uphill battle, they should be looking at it and saying, based on our resources, based on our ability to recruit, based on our reach, we should have top 4 talent, top 2 facilities, and we should win 6-7 games every year because we're going to beat Utah State most years and we're going to beat Texas State most years. And, maybe it's a coin flip with Boise State and Washington State, but the rest of our games are very, very, very winnable. I mean, they look at the league. So to make any excuse other than like, oh, well, we got left behind, you should be in a spot now where your brand gets a lot better. You should go into the Pac-12 and bully people. And coaches should want to be there because they should be able to inflate their win-loss record. Look at the conference. Like, it's correct. Colorado State. When in the last 15 years has Oregon State been afraid of Colorado State, Utah State, or Texas State? Those are gimme wins. So you should be in a position where you are pretty much aligned to win 6, 7, 8, and then in your good years, more games a year because your conference sucks. So you should be able to attract a young coach who goes, yeah, I'll run my offense. I won't be running it against any top 40 defenses in the country. And then I'm going to go after 3 years and having won 27 games in those 3 years. And I'm going to go to Louisiana or LSU. I'm going to go to Ole Miss. And that's an okay thing. Yep. You don't need to say, well, Bray didn't really want to be a head coach. And so when he took that job, I'll always be thankful. Bullshit. I'm sorry. Bullshit. He did a terrible job. Yeah. He was terrible. Yeah. He sank your program. There's no like, well, he was put in a tough spot. Yeah, you know why he got put in a tough spot? He gets $3.24 million now from you guys. Yeah. Like, there's his tough spot. There's your send away. Don't be like, I'll always have a soft spot because when we got abandoned, he stepped up. He took the job not like, oh, begrudgingly, oh, God, it's so hard to take this job. He got a huge raise and became a head coach of a major program.
That he wasn't going to get a head coaching job anywhere else.
And then he absolutely botched it, dropped an F-bomb at halftime, alienated to the team to the point that guys weren't all trying by week 1. I mean, what are we doing? Drives me nuts. Go get a young head coach, go win 7 or 8 games a year in a crappy conference, and start making a resume that people can respect to say, hey, when the wheel finally stops turning in all of this, we belong at the seat of the table instead of Northwestern. We Agreed. Get the seat at the table instead of Vanderbilt. Well, yeah. Bad example right now.
That's actually really good. But yeah,
Vanderbilt's really, what I mean.
I think we're on the same. Don't give me retreads.
Yep.
Don't give me retreads. Don't give me he has ties to the school. Don't give me he's stable. No. Go get me the boomer bust guy. Go get me the guy.
Swing.
A.K.A. swing. God, it can't get any worse, can it?
Washington. Washington's not going to get any worse than that in that game.
No, I was really disappointed in that one.
It's really interesting. It very much feels like Damon Williams in structure has a little bit hard time kind of keeping it all together. You get him on the move, you get him rolling, he can really make some plays. I thought Michigan did a really good job of just disguising things, making it difficult for him to get in any type of rhythm.
Yeah.
And he was pressing, and that's what he always does. And you said that like week 1 or 2.
Yeah.
The worst thing in the world is Damon Williams when you see him back there and he starts to like he's going to make something happen. And you're like, oh, this is going to be bad. And I thought Michigan just put him in that spot. They got behind and they just kept him there. Let's keep him antsy. And it snowballed on him. I think this is still a good Washington team. I think Oregon fan likes to come back on us and like, you guys said this team would. I think what we said is they'd play Oregon in a meaningful game. Yeah. They look like they're going to have 2, at worst 3 losses heading into that Oregon game. That's a meaningful game, which is all we ever said. I like Damon Williams, Jonah Coleman. They did a good job kind of slowing him down and keeping him from being a huge impact. And the game went sideways. This is Washington had their Oregon-Indiana game against Michigan, where they got out-coached, they got out-schemed, and some of their worst habits kind of came out. And so now Washington fans feeling really down like Oregon did after the Indiana game. And I think you got 3-4 weeks to kind of figure it back out. And then you play an Oregon team for a whole lot.
Yeah. I mean, as bad as that was, and it was bad. I mean, you scored 7 points, and this offense is too good to be scoring 7 points. It was 14-7 going into the fourth quarter.
Yep.
I mean, it was 14-7. I mean, if you told me that you were going to be that bad on the opposite side of the ball, it's a little bit like Ohio State, right? I mean, it's funny that going into the year, I really thought that the Washington defense was going to be the giant question mark. And I'm not saying Washington's defense is great by any stretch of the imagination, but in there's 2 losses, their offense has done nothing. And the defense has held them in those games. And I keep waiting for the offense to kind of come to life. And dude, there's components here. And maybe it's one of those where we're just a year off. But to me, I think the Carver Willis injury for Washington really has been a bigger impact than people realize. And John Mills is out. So, you know, the fact that you have lost, you're probably your best offensive lineman and your best
entire left side.
Your entire left side of your line is gone. And I'm not trying to make excuses again. I thought Washington was going to be better than this. And they just, from an offensive standpoint, they just haven't been. It's been kind of feast or famine. When it looks good, it looks great. And when it looks bad, it looks atrocious. But, when you lose, and we said this going into the year, Washington doesn't have a lot of depth. And last year, their O-line was one of the worst in the country. And I think you're seeing that without these 2 guys, it's kind of reverting back to some of that. And then you speed up the Damon Williams stuff when you don't have the protection, when you can't consistently get the run game going. I think that's a frustrating part. I would think that even with backup O-line, we thought that the Jonah Coleman would be a bigger factor. I don't really love any of the rhythm that they're getting in. I think Fisch at times this year, some of the schemes that he runs and the play calling, I think he falls in love with what Damon Williams can be, as opposed to sometimes just getting Coleman going. I think I would have liked to have seen that early, especially when you know that your offensive line is not in the greatest of shape. And then mistakes. Again, you can't throw 3 picks. I mean, 14 of those points that Michigan got came directly off of Damon Williams' interception short fields. Right. So, you know, that's one of those, if you're Washington, it's extremely disappointing that you lost that game the way you did. If you want to take a plus side out of it, hopefully you get some help back on the O-line and you figure that Damon Williams isn't going to look like that every single week. And I think Washington's season kind of comes down to this week against Illinois. I mean, you mentioned it, like they got Illinois at home, and Illinois is a good team. But if you can get some of those bodies back and your defense can continue to play the way they've played and keep you in games, and your offense finally comes to life and wakes up a little bit, and we get kind of the second half against Maryland, Damon Williams that we saw, and we get Jonah Coleman involved, and you find a way to beat Illinois. And
they're 4.5 point favorites, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you beat Illinois in that game, and then you're looking at Wisconsin, Purdue, and UCLA. And again, you should be a favorite in every one of those games. Although UCLA's got a little something going now, but those are all – you beat Illinois, you are favorites. And if you do that, then you have put yourself as a 2-loss team going into that final week against Oregon, which is, again, I think dream scenario. If for your Washington this season, this is what you were asking for. Right. So while I am very disappointed with the way it went down, and Damon Williams just has to be better. But again, much like we said about Dante Moore, you mentioned this was your Indiana game. Dante Moore went from everyone saying you're the number 1 pick in the country to looking like you had never seen some of the defenses that Indiana was throwing at you. Damon Williams had that. Right. There's just no way around it. He will look at that game and be like, what the hell was I doing? And I think maybe I was really high on Damon, and I still am. I think the growth factor, maybe that's going to take a little longer. I think some of his bad habits are going to be a little bit harder to break because he does have a tendency to want to play Johnny Manziel football. And I think that's going to be a little harder to break versus like maybe Dante Moore that tries to play a little more of a clean, cerebral game from the pocket. And also one is 5'10", 5'11", and the other one is 6'3", right? They're 2 very different guys. So disappointing, but if you're Washington, I think if you beat Illinois, everything is still on track for what you're looking for. You lose to Illinois, then maybe we go to where we're at. Because again, at Washington right now, the sky isn't falling by any stretch of the imagination. It does feel a little weird that the Jedd Fisch thing hasn't really – I mean, this is year 2, and I don't know many Washington people that think that Fisch is the long-term guy there. whether he's
but I think it's tough. Like, look at what so DeBoer leaves, and Washington fan is like, we're back. Yeah. We were in the national title game, right? Yeah. They lost most of their 2 deep, not just their starters. Like they literally at some positions they went like 4 deep. Guys transferred or graduated. So in year 1, it's just a rebuild. Yeah. And I think there's little nuanced things with Jedd Fisch. Like he left and didn't take a ton of talent. Like the best talent from Arizona, a lot of it didn't come with him, right? So you go, well, that's a little off. And then his wife doesn't move to Seattle. And you go, well, that's a little off. I think this team in the offense, like you watch them and it's like, they're really talented, but that's a little off. I think Jedd Fisch has done a pretty good job for a program that completely reset. I think if you start going into like vibes a little bit, which I hate to do, and we've talked about that, there's certain things about this program that feel a little off. And there's certain things about Jedd Fisch's tenure at Washington that feel a little off. Yeah. Like, hey, that Arizona team was loaded. I'll bring them with me. Well, Tet McMillan stayed. Yeah. And Noah Fafita stayed. Wait a minute. How come those guys didn't come with you? Like what? Where's that? And then how come your wife didn't come with you? And how come the offense sometimes is disjointed? Again, it just feels like if he leaves, I think you're going to get a split vote until we see what transfers follow him with Washington fan, whether they're disappointed or not. Like he could leave for Florida or whatever, and Washington fan might go, let's see who goes with him because maybe this is better. It's been a weird tenure.
And that's what I'm saying. Like I'm not saying that he's not a good coach on the field. Again, I know some people that are around that program, and like you said, from where they were at, and he came in, he stabilized the program, and to be 5-2, I think 5-2 right now, right? 5-2. And again, you beat Illinois, everything's still on track to have a really nice season. I think to end up winning, 9 games and go to a bowl game, which is really good in year 2. It just feels, like I said, it feels unsettled that no one is convinced that Jedd Fisch, whether because of his own doing or because of the school's doing, they don't feel like he's going. Like if I asked the average UW fan, in 3 years is Jedd Fisch your head coach, they would say no.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's a weird place to be now.
For all parties, right?
For all parties involved. So it does, for Dan Lanning doing the 10 toes down thing, I think Jedd Fisch is like 5 toes down. Like maybe
at best. This is a rebound. It feels like a rebound relationship that you guys had a lot of fun and had some really fun nights. And then you're like, should we get a place together? And you're like, let's table that for now. And you start hanging out, and then maybe like it just doesn't quite click, and you're still hanging out because being single kind of sucks. But that's what this feels like. It feels like the rebound that's stretching into relationship territory when neither party maybe really wants it to.
But again, positive sides, your defense, again, played really well into the fourth quarter, and it really was just short fields that killed you, and your offense can't be that bad. Right? Like, your offense can't be that bad.
Against Maryland, too. It takes them like 2.5 quarters to figure out what they're doing.
And that's weird. It's weird at times because it's just that there's too much talent there on the offensive side of the ball, and Fisch is a really smart offensive scheme guy, and they just go long stretches where they have no identity to speak of whatsoever. And I don't love Jonah Coleman getting, 15, 16 carries, not when your quarterback's struggling like that. But Carver Willis, that big one. Carver Willis, John Mills come back. They need them. They don't have the depth to, and I don't know what the status is on both of those guys. We'll see what happens. But I think 1 or 2 of those guys coming back against Illinois would be a huge, huge get for UW. And this to me this is the biggest game on your schedule right now. You beat Illinois. Everything you wanted still sits before you with a really nice season. You lose to Illinois, and this is going to have a completely different feel to it.
It's going to have a completely different feel to your prediction, too. I mean, this is the Suke Prediction Bowl. This is Washington and USC better than Indiana and Illinois, and you might get it on the tail end of Illinois falling apart.
We ain't getting it on Indiana. No, Indiana is better than I thought they were, and some of that was, I knew what you were doing.
That's why I played it up, because you were kind of not being super into it. That I was like, okay, he's betting his beard, because I knew you were kind of limping into that a little bit.
In Indiana too, it pissed me off the way they went about their schedule. I hate that. I hate the way they do it. But hey,
I kind of goaded you. If you go back and listen, I kind of goaded you into that because I really liked Indiana.
Indiana really has shown me a lot. I am impressed with Signetti. And by the way, they gave him F ton of money too, so he ain't going anywhere. Supposedly, Indiana locked him up, which that's what you have to do in the world of college football nowadays. And but it just and I know it's completely off topic, and I know we're going long here, but with Franklin getting fired and Mike Norvell about to get fired. Every school that claims poverty and says they need help from the government and antitrust protection and all this, fuck you.
Hey,
yeah.
We got to be careful with F-bombs on the pod because we get flagged.
Yeah, sorry
we'll
about
leave
that.
it in for now, but we're trying to stay away from the F-bomb at least.
Yeah, trying to stay away. That ship has sailed. The next school that cries that they need money or they can't afford to pay players or whatever, stop it.
Right.
For another $50+ million buyout. Mike Norvell, if he gets fired and his staff has to go with him and you hire the next one, it's $100 million check that you're going to write. So stop crying poverty. Stop trying to.
Napier's $21 million.
And the ones doing this to you or yourself, you're the only one handing out these guaranteed contracts, right? So what you're saying is, you need protection from yourself. Some of these contracts are ridiculous. Some guy, has, and look, obviously what Signetti is doing is amazing in Indiana, but he has played 17 games there, and you're basically like, okay, if he's not any good, $90 million. Well, this is your commitment. And then, for Penn State, to fire James Franklin at that, you have no sense of yourself top to bottom. So you're the one handing out these massive deals, and then when they don't go your way, then you get to claim poverty. That stuff pisses me off so much, and I apologize for my language there. But it's just it's ridiculous to me that
if you were a recruit, wouldn't you just go to them and be like, I want $3 million? And they're like, no. And it's like, why? You flushed 90. I'm good. You could give me 3. Like I would just bend those programs over unless I'd go somewhere more stable. If you want me to come to an unstable environment, you have to pay me a lot more. And you know how I know you have it? Because you paid $90 million for your other coach to walk away. So I'm worth 3 to at least play.
And I got these people saying, the SCORE Act, and we need the government to step in because NIL is ruining college football and these players in the movement. Yeah, that's what's ruining college football. How about a coach having one good year and then getting a $90 million buyout and then turning for the next 2 years to be absolutely awful, Mike Norvell, and then he's going to get $75 million to walk away, but it's the kid. It's the kid's fault. It's the transfer portal. No, it's you the ones that created this. The schools created this, and now you're asking someone else to bail them out. That stuff, don't ever let any school, I don't care who you are, no school gets to cry poverty. No school gets to cry, woe is me, and we don't have the money to do this or do that. No. Because anytime from Jimbo Fisher to James Franklin to Mike Norvell to Billy Napier, when they really want to do it, somehow magically they come up with the money. But when it's actually something that they don't want to do, then I don't have money. Things are tight right now. It's like you go to your dad or whatever, and you're like, hey Dad, I need this and this, and he's like, well, money's real tight. Meanwhile, Dad's down at the bar, throwing out dollar bills to the single mother. Well, don't tell me one thing that you can't afford to buy me some new shoes. Meanwhile, you're out at the bar running up a $300 bar tab and taking care of some single mom's car payment. Because she likes to spin around. Like, you don't get to do both of those things. You have to pick one or the other. And schools have no discipline. And I hate that they're trying to get Congress, they're trying to get the government to step in and protect them from themselves. And then I get the average fan being like, oh, this thing is ruining college football. No, if anything's ruining college football, it's the universities ruining college football. It's not the players
and the TV companies. Yes. that are fighting for all these brands to be under one umbrella. That's who forced conference realignment and greedy commissioners. It wasn't these schools. Like they were stuck where it's like, if we join them, we get $90 million. Oregon's going to get at some point towards the end of their Big Ten contract, right, $90 million a year. Oregon State's contract is like between 6 and 10. If you want to talk about like, why didn't Oregon stay? And like, shame on Oregon. They had to. There's an $85 million difference per year for them to stay versus go. And so they went because that's the way it had to be. I want to end with this because I do think it's important. If we're going to do a West Coast show, we probably do need to mention USC and Lincoln Riley. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. Talk about putting yourself in a bind with potential huge buyout. The rumors are something like between 70 and 90. I've heard 90 is his buyout. He just doesn't seem like a coach who's suited to win in the Big Ten or SEC where it's more physical. It's like, we kind of avoid. It reminds me a lot of like young Chip Kelly, where it's like, if we have more speed, we can be small in the trenches, we'll just dominate you and we'll go out and do whatever. Special teams, don't need a coordinator. And it's biting them in the ass. And it continually does. We keep seeing this. Teams who are physical with USC win. I mean, it's that simple. If you can be physical with USC, you win. And it's too long into Lincoln Riley's tenure that this hasn't been solved. What would you do there? And where is Lincoln Riley in your pecking order of college football coaches? Because for me, I don't think as a coach, I would have him in my top 10 to 15 anymore at all.
Well, it's certainly the shine has come off of him. And it's funny because the week before, you know me, I'm a pretty nuanced guy. Really disappointed with the Notre Dame game. They just punched you right in the mouth and ran it right down your throat. But as bad as the Russian defense was, I mean, I'm looking here. Yeah, Jeremiah Love had 228 yards. He's averaged 9.5 a carry. That game came down to special teams and turnovers, right? Like they had the 100-yard kickoff return and then the picks at the end, and the fumble, by the way, ended up killing you, absolutely killing you. Mm-hmm. So, USC, you look at the rest of the schedule: Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, Oregon, UCLA. In order to get where you want, you're going to have to go on the road and beat Oregon. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I will wait and see. But the week before, it felt like you passed the physicality test and that Michigan is a big physical team. We just saw Michigan bully Washington, and USC stood up to it. So we were like, oh, well, that's the big test, right? It was Michigan.
Then the week before that, they lost to Illinois. Like, they're a yo-yo team, man. It's weird.
It's kind of up and down, and it's weird. If you're USC, I don't know where you go. Like, for me, this is where I think maybe some patience goes in. I don't know where you go from Lincoln Riley. Like, you're going to really write a $90 million check, and then where do you go? I honestly think if USC, you hold out hope that eventually Lincoln Riley can get back to where Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma. The recruiting has finally been figured out, right? They finally got that situated. Let's say USC ends up being 9-3 this year, not exactly where you want to be, but the recruiting rankings are coming back. I think this is one of those where you just have to preach patience. And I know it's been frustrating because I'm with you. When Lincoln Riley came in, I was like, buckle up. Here comes a new power. And it hasn't worked out. But to be honest with you, USC hasn't been great in 25 years. They just haven't. So, this idea that Lincoln Riley was going to awaken a sleeping giant, maybe the idea is that it's not a sleeping giant. Maybe the idea is that USC is closer to Nebraska than they are to Ohio State. And that's just kind of the reality of this. And Lincoln Riley, while he was really, really good at Oklahoma, wasn't Urban Meyer. And both of those things can be true. I just don't know how, if you're USC, you write that check. And I also don't know where you go from there, because if you do write that check to get rid of him and you do end up cleaning out that whole staff, there goes your top 10 recruiting class to go along with it. I mean, you're going to be able to maintain some of that. And then you're holding it back. I mean, this kind of goes back to like the Florida thing, or do you get caught in that cycle where you make the wrong hire, once or twice, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Nelly, here it comes. So it's a dicey proposition at best. I'll tell you what, if you do write that check and you move on from Lincoln Riley, you better have the next guy lined up. This better not be, hey, we'll fire Lincoln Riley and wonder where we're going. You better have the money lined up, the money to hire the next guy, the money to hire his next staff, and have your NIL dialed in, where the next guy comes in, hits the ground running, and doesn't lose his recruiting class. Right. Because I think like what Penn State did, I thought was a real knee-jerk reaction, and I don't think they're necessarily going to get better than James Franklin right now. And so that's where I'd be. I think USC and Penn State are a similar sort of program right now. And be careful what you wish for. So, but yeah, Lincoln Riley right now, top 15 coach. I don't like, it's the Dabo Sweeney thing. Is Dabo a top 10 coach? Based on resume, he is.
Not in the modern era. Not in the modern era.
But in the modern era, is he? No. And is Lincoln Riley? No, probably not. Would I try to give it another year of actual, hopefully elite recruiting? Would I give it another year or two at USC? Yeah, I would. If I'm USC, I do not think that I would. Now, if this thing goes on the side of the mountain, you lose to Nebraska and you lose to UCLA, maybe. Right, but, I would not. I would not be looking to make a change right now if I was USC.
In other very quick news, you can take our Brock Purdy, you can take our Fred Warner, you can take our Nick Bosa, you can take most of our receivers, you can take some of our linemen, a few corners, and Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh will still find a way to win. The Niners, bang, bang, Niner gang. They are 5-2 with basically, I mean, if they make this movie someday, and because they just make the playoffs, I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. It will be called The Replacements. I know there already is that movie, but dude, it's ridiculous. Every week they lose a major player. Like George Kittle's back. He's not back. He had 0 catches. Like they just keep piecing it together. It's been, I have to represent because I think they're grinding, but it is the most hate watch thing in the world for me right now. They're not fun to watch because a big player gets hurt every week and it's ugly. And then it's like, oh, they won again, I guess. It's very weird.
It is the most, I mean, Fred Warner goes out, who's the most durable player in the league. And you're like, it never ends. And it doesn't seem to matter. Now, granted, the schedule is so paper thin. They're going to beat the Texans next week too. The Texans stink.
I would think so.
Yeah. And they got the Panthers, the Browns, the Titans. Dude, this team can make the playoffs.
They will. But
they're not going anywhere. But I'm with you. That is one of the most amazing storylines I've seen in the NFL. Is somehow they've managed to do this. It is mind blowing.
Kyle Shanahan, if they make the playoffs, should be coach of the year.
Hands down.
And it's not close.
Not even close. Yep. This is the best coaching job he's ever done in his entire life.
All right. That's it. Thank you, Suke. Appreciate you. Glad you're back. We will break down or preview next week's action or this weekend's action, probably Thursday or Friday. But hopefully we can stop talking now because I'm bumbling all over myself. Like, subscribe, the whole thing. Thank you.
All that good stuff.